In this video, we're going to be changing out the radiator fan assembly here on a 2012 Toyota Prius C. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome to Random Fix. So my vehicle's AC is no longer working because this fan doesn't spin anymore. So I just made a video on how a scan tool can help you diagnose this. But if you're interested in changing out the radiator fan here, I'm going to show you guys how to do this really quick. You don't need a lot of tools, but you do need access to underneath the vehicle. So I have lifted it up in the air already. So let me show you guys how I did that. Make sure your engine's cooled off before you start. So the vehicle is lifted up on jack stands on both sides. I have the floor jack in place just as an extra precaution. The parking brake is set all the way up. If you have some wheel chocks or something else, go ahead and throw those back there. And we are gonna go and change this out really fast. So we need to go and get all this out of here. So the way we're gonna do it is by removing this upper header piece that runs across, and most of these are going to be held on by these 10mm bolts. So you're going to need an open-end wrench in most of these locations and a clip removal tool. And once we get this off, then we can go ahead and work on getting the rest of it out. So let's go ahead and get this done. So you can do several different things, which is to go ahead and just remove the hardware and the clips up here, or you can go underneath the vehicle and start draining the fluid, and I'll show you guys what you're going to have to pull in order to get access down there, and then we'll come back up here. But these clips are really easy to remove if you have the right tools. So we're underneath the vehicle now, and I need to get to this peacock right here. If I loosen this up, this is going to go and drain. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. If you have a longer hose, you may not have to remove this, but it's not a bad idea to go ahead and remove this undercover. And most of the connections are going to be 10mm sockets. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly remove the undercover so I have access down here. It'll make my job a lot easier. If you want to go ahead and remove the whole thing, you need to remove these other two back ones here and here. Now I got boxes underneath to make sure that this container is lined up. And I'm going to try to reuse this fluid because I just changed this out about 3 months ago. So I'm going to open this peacock right here. You want to make sure your coolant is not hot. I am wearing gloves and eye protection. We're going to go ahead and get this done. Okay, I can hear the coolant. And I can see it too. As a side note, if you don't want to make a mess, I highly recommend putting down a tarp. Now we're going to undo the top hardware here. So take your time. Again, these are 10mm bolts, and my hardware is on super tight. Surprised if you have to use power tools. Alright, I had to take out better tools because everything's on tight. So we had a little bit of a challenging bolt right here. It was stuck in, so we used a heat gun and it got it loose. So this is all loose. And we need to undo the wiring harness. Now you need to go ahead and get the clip off this, so you can come back here and push this and push that in, and then this just pops back up. Okay, so that's off there. You also have the wire right here running. So again, you have a clip. Push the tab in from both sides, and once you push the tab in, just back it up. And this is completely loose now. It's just held in by this little clip right here. That clip is loose and it runs through this header, so we're not going to take that off anymore. Now up here we got to get the radiator to be loose, so we need to go ahead and focus, looks like, on these bolts, and also undo the connectors here. So you're going to loosen up this and this one right here. These two get loosened up, and then you're going to undo the wiring harnesses right here. Here's the bottom one. I'm going to grab a flat tip screwdriver and just work this connector back. Connectors are both disconnected, and we need to get this off here. So that clip is off. Wire is completely off and out of the way. Next, we want to get this cover off, and this cover is a little tricky. So make sure that you have the 10mm bolts that hold it in place off. Then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and push the clip back, and then grab the screwdriver and pull this out. So let me show you guys really quick. So again, we're pushing back and we're twisting it forward. Then we're going to bring the screwdriver here, and now this is out of your way. Electrical connections are undone, both of them. And we're going to go work on these close clamps here. And I'm just going to go and try to see if I can get away with the least amount of work. And then we can pretty much start sliding this up. Now you're going to undo the 10mm bolts that hold the filler neck in place. And we're going to back these out. And then we went ahead and undid the line that actually runs underneath the coolant reservoir. It runs right in here. And if you look at your new radiator piece, it's actually held on by some clips. I've gone through and undid the clips. So there's some clips, and I reached down here and I squeezed them and I separated this too. There's a lot of dirt down here now. This side has the same 2 clips down there, and I'm gonna go and reach down there. And I'll show you guys on the actual piece what I did. So the clip is right at the top. And when you separate these, now we can go ahead and get this pretty much out. There's a couple other things that are holding it in place. One of them is going to be the hose up here. Another reason why this is still stuck, there's going to be a line right here where I'm touching. It's attached to that shroud using some sort of connector. So to remove the connection on this hose that runs down here, what I did is I used this and I basically just backed out the clip. Now let's see if this is loose. Tied up some pinch clamps here so it doesn't leak everywhere. No, it's not going to leak. And let's see what we got here. Again, we have one more connection on this line right here. We're going to have to use this to get this off as well. Or you can just work the tube out of the connection. If you can notice right there, that's how you get it off. You basically just work it out of the holder. Okay, so clips are done. Have this all cleared up, and there's one more connection. Always more connections. Again, I got a tube that's sitting in a holder. I just move it out of the holder whenever possible. All right, so you guys can see it's completely disconnected. If you want to make your job easier, go ahead and disconnect the radiator hose. I was trying not to do that, but there's really no way around that. So I might go through and just disconnect it here. And be careful with these style clamps, as they will break on you. Yeah, I know these have a trick. You push them through and they lock. Now I'm going to get this out of my way and try not to bend this too much because you can damage it. Get this back here. Oh boy, do you have to move a lot of connections to get this off. So I'll tell you guys about that in a little bit later. But now I need to get this done. I've separated the condenser from the radiator and the fan assembly here. And all of these different hoses are undone. You're going to have to undo the top 2, the bottom 2, and everything else in between. You really don't need to worry about the connections except for the one that's coming in over here. You want to slide this sideways, away from the condenser. Make sure you got the condenser line out of your way. Again, you want to make sure everything is loose. So once you undo the 2 clips on the front here, get the controller off. You're going to go and make sure that the grommets are out, and you're going to just slide everything back together. Get the new shroud in here, clips back in. I'm going to attach the controller back here again. So last night I had to actually really hurry up and get this done, so I didn't get a chance to record all the little details. So there's a really easy way of thinking about this particular replacement, and it's not replacing the fan. You need to think of this as a radiator replacement because you have to undo all the hoses that are connected to the radiator for the coolant. So you'll have to undo these hoses up top. The one right here, and there's a connection here. If you can't get to it, there's one here and there's one here. Whichever one works for you, go ahead and disconnect. So either one of these 3 locations, and there's going to be the 10mm bolts that hold this in place right where my fingers are. and they're gonna be the shorter ones, and they are gonna be galvanized. The longer ones go underneath this particular panel with the big old grommet. Additionally, you have to undo the bigger radiator hose right here too. And again, I have replaced the ring because the one that came with it got damaged. So I am touching it right now. And I replaced both of these with just a universal fit. And I went and reattached the hose that runs from the filler neck to the overflow reservoir. Additionally, when I did this, obviously this is not just drained the coolant, it drained the inverter, which is behind there. It's the pink fluid. You will have to refill that as well, and I'll show you guys from the bottom. And there's really no connections or bolts or nuts that you have to do on the bottom, which I'll get to in a second. So this will have to be topped off, and the radiator as well as the radiator reservoir. And this is the original hose clamps that were on there, and as you guys can see, one of them got pretty mangled up, so I didn't want to take a chance and put it back. There is a special tool for this. If you're not in a hurry, I highly recommend getting the tool, and it will make your life and your job a lot easier. This probably took one of the longest times to go ahead and undo because I didn't have the right tools, as I recently moved and I didn't bring all my tools with me. So let's get back into the radiator fan here. So the radiator fan basically is gonna undo from the radiator once it's out of the car. There's no way of separating the two while it's still in the car. So it'll have to come out. And the way you do that is once you have this off and what I showed you guys in the beginning of the video, that plastic trim, then what you're gonna need to do is separate the radiator and the condenser. And the condenser is going to be this first silver aluminum piece, and that's in charge of the freon. And you cannot undo this, so you have to get it out of your way, but you have to be very careful. So to get the radiator off with the fan, you need to go and basically suck the condenser to the left towards the passenger side, and maybe you'll need a helper with this, and then you'll slide the radiator and the fan out. Once I took the fan out, I took off the connections that were here. There were going to be little clips that held the hoses in place, and I think there was a total of 4. So there was one here, one here, one here, and one here. And when I reattached them, I did use zip ties, as once the clips come off, they are not as strong as they first were. And I removed that little controller that was right here. It had 2 Phillips screws right here, and now I have it on the new part, so it's attached here, right down there. And again, I reinstalled the wiring harness. Again, I apologize, I had to do this in a hurry last night, so that's why I'm doing this and just making sure I got everything nice and tight. I also just changed the oil, so if you guys are going to be doing this, it might be a great time to actually change any additional components that your vehicle hasn't had recently serviced. So if you haven't done your coolant, you're going to do your coolant because it's pretty much the same job. And I'll show you guys from below. As I mentioned, you are going to have to refill the radiator reservoir, and the inverter. And you're going to need at least 1.5 gallons of the Toyota coolant. And you could also go on rockauto.com and they'll have an OEM replacement. So all of this is back in place. Now let's go underneath and I'll show you guys what I did on the bottom side. Again, this is not going to be a solo job. This is a radiator and fan removal. So there's no way of separating this inside the vehicle. If you think of it that way, your job is going to become very, very easy. And once you have the radiator and the fan out, there's going to be a clip right here. You push them together, clip right here, and this guy just is going to go and pop up and they slide apart. Really easy. Now let's take a look at what's down here and you guys will fully understand this. Now let's take a look at what's underneath the vehicle. So the best way I have of explaining this job is think of this as a coolant change initially. So you're going to want to open this peacock and that one. You are going to drain the inverter whether you like it or not. And if you don't want to take a chance, there's going to be a little pin right here where I'm touching. And you pull that pin out and all the fluid will go and gush out. So if you don't want to be covered in coolant, I highly recommend doing it this way. And I do have a video on how to change the coolant on this vehicle. So you may want to watch that video first. Once you have the coolant drained, you're going to want to disconnect this hose and also that hose right there. And these are not too difficult. And for the coolant reservoir, this is the hose you're going to reuse. So you want to make sure you get the hardware back in place and it runs up to the radiator cap filler neck. And honestly, if you do this correct, this job shouldn't take more than an hour and a half with the right hose clamp removal tool, and if you drain the fluid, and you will not make a big mess. In my case, I did lay down a tarp, and that's how I protected my driveway. My fan is working now, and the reason I replaced the fan was because my air conditioning wasn't working, as this vehicle only has one fan. So if the AC gets activated and the fan can't suck in any air to go over the condenser, your air conditioning system will become inoperable, among other things. So this is the reason for me changing this. And I got this part for $40, and it was very affordable, and it was a direct mount. Down here, there is going to be no hardware that you have to worry about. Once you have the top pieces out, this is just going to push up, and you will see another pin that's silver. That's actually for the radiator. You're going to go and make sure that the pins for the radiator and condenser are separate, because the condenser cannot come out with the radiator, which is going to be attached to this. So hopefully you guys liked this video and it was helpful, and I will go and leave any notes for you guys in the video description box down below, as well as links to any products that you can use and maybe the part numbers for this. Overall, if you want to save $800 and burn 2 or 3 hours, it's a very easy job, as long as you think about it as a radiator change, and make sure that you get that replacement coolant, as you do not want to put dirty coolant back in your vehicle because it is going to be contaminated. If you have OEM factory hose clamps, something like this is not going to really cut it. Honestly, you need the right tool, or better tools than this. This is very challenging. Thank you so much, and make it a great day.